Photoshop has some very interesting options to play around with text. If I press T for text over here and make sure I'm on a layer above where I want to be, or create a new empty layer, but creating a new text will create a new layer in itself anyway. So I'm going to click where I want to start. This will now give me the option to start writing from that point, left to right. We can change the font that we want, and if it has other options we can also change over here to things like thin, regular, italic, but certain text will not, or fonts will not. So if I go impact, for example, there is no option for this, it's just regular. We can adjust the font size here by either clicking on here and manually selecting one, or you can type in the font size you want, or you can click and drag the font size you want there. Over here we've got our color option, and we can zip through and change the colors that we wish to have for that, or we can go to a color picker, which will be selected once we click on that color, and that will allow us to select a color there. By default you're going to have the lorem ipsum Latin, which is just a fill-in spacer, but once we start typing in, our new words will be applied. So for example, mine skull of hearts. Once I'm finished with the text, you need to press the apply button up the top here, as enter will just give you another space. And there it is there. I can grab my move tool and I can move that text around. If I wish to edit the text, I'm going to hit T for text once again with that layer selected, and I can click and drag over certain fonts, and maybe I wish to change that. You can see I can start shifting through some of these, and you can change the color, and once again move tool to apply, and that will adjust that particular font. So these are all changeable. But let's look at a few extra options here. Writing left to right is great for some things, but we might want to do something a little bit extra. With the text tool selected once again, we have some options up the top here. One is for left align, middle alignment, or right alignment. None of these are going to be useful for what I want at the moment, but we also have this option here, which has got a letter T with a curve underneath it. And if we click on here, we can see that we have some options for doing things like arcs, like so, and even some really weird ones like fish, or potentially twist. As you change through these, you'll notice that these different options of blend and horizontal and vertical distortions are going to start coming in. So we can actually manipulate our text like so. And once again, if we go back, we can do some really amazing sort of things. And we can switch from horizontal to vertical. I'm going to cancel out of that. The one that I find is going to be really useful for us is actually applying this to a curve. I'm going to double click on my text and select that. I'm going to go Command C to copy, and I'm actually going to delete that layer. Chuck it in the bin. And I'm going to use a shape. Now there's two options. We can create a shape and switch that to path, or we can use the pen tool and switch that to path as well. I'm going to use the pen tool in this instance, and I'm going to create a curve. Something like that, just for demo purposes. Please note that when you create a path, if you press enter, it looks like it's disappeared, but it's actually pushed itself in the paths option here. So if you do need to, you can bring that up, and there it is there. There's my other path as well. Please note, if you create a new path and hit enter, it will apply it to the same work path there. So if you want them to be separate, what you will need to do is press the plus key at the bottom here, and that way when you create a new one, it will be a separate entity to the other one. I'm going to select this one. I'm then going to go for T for text, and I'm going to start hovering over that line. As I hover over that, where I want it to start, you'll see that that text will now change. It will now click in there. There it is, lorem ipsum. I'm going to press Command V in this case, and there is the text that I previously copied from before. I can now edit this as I wish. And with all of these, stepping forwards through my selection tool and back into text, or selecting individual aspects, I can change the scale or the size of my text, and all the other options that come along with the adjustment of your text, including all the spacings, compressions, and everything else that goes in with that. So there's a lot of options. And don't forget, this also works with shape tools. So if I go polygon tool, let's take this down to say 6 or 7 sides. I'm going to convert this to a star. Let's indent the sides, say 13. There is a path, you'll notice, that's applied here. I'm going to go T for text, decide where that's going to start, and let's paste that in, apply, and now I can move that around. And that text is now applied to that shape. So some very interesting stuff you can do with that. Have a play around with it, and if you need to do something like a circular banner, this might be the way to look.